안녕하세요.
The city of Seoul glowed with its gleaming skyscrapers and the ceaseless movement of people coming and going. High atop the Kang Group building, one of the most powerful conglomerates in South Korea, Kang Ji-ho stood gazing out through the panoramic window of his office. His gaze was cold, calculating. His reputation as an unyielding CEO was not by chance. To him, there was no room for distractions or frivolities. Work came before everything else. The luxurious office reflected his personality. Minimalist, elegant, and impeccably organized. He adjusted his tie and turned to face the pile of reports on his desk. Another day of relentless decisions and exhausting meetings. However, on this particular day, something outside of his routine would happen. Something he couldn't predict or control. On the other side of the building, Yoon-ha hurried down the hallway, clutching a stack of documents she needed to deliver to the finance department. She had been working in the administrative sector for just a few months and did her best to keep a low profile. Always discreet, always efficient. Her salary was modest but enough to support her family, and she was determined to keep this job at all costs. However, that day, everything went wrong. Turning the corner of the hallway, she collided forcefully with a firm chest, sending the papers flying through the air. Ji-ho took a step back, frowning. "Do you have any idea who you're bumping into?" His voice was sharp, laden with irritation. "Huh?" Rai's eyes widened as she realized who stood before her. "President Kang, I'm so sorry." She quickly knelt down to gather the scattered documents. Her heart was pounding in her chest. Her first face-to-face encounter with the most feared man in the company couldn't have gone worse. There was something about her that made him hesitate. Instead of simply reprimanding her and moving on, Ji-ho stayed there, observing her. It was uncommon for anyone to meet his gaze directly, but Hari did so, even if just for a brief moment. Her face flushed slightly, and her trembling hands betrayed her nervousness. "Forget it. Just be more careful next time," he said, surprised with himself for not being harsher. As he turned to walk away, Hari felt her heart race. It was the first time she had been so close to the legendary CEO, and despite his cold demeanor, there was something about him that made her catch her breath. What she didn't know was that, for the first time in a long while, Ji-ho felt the same. He found himself glancing back discreetly, watching her hurriedly gather the papers. Something about it unsettled him, a new restlessness that didn't belong in his perfectly controlled routine. In the elevator, Ji-ho stared at his reflection in the stainless steel mirror. That was strange, he murmured to himself, not understanding why that random employee was occupying his thoughts. He shook his head, brushing off the thought. It didn't matter. He had business to attend to. Little did he know, that small incident was just the beginning of something that would change his life forever. On the other side of the building, Hari tried to pull herself together. "Great, now he's going to fire me," she muttered to herself, letting out a heavy sigh. But as she remembered the intense look Kang Ji-ho had given her, an inexplicable shiver ran down her spine. Maybe she was just imagining things. Or maybe her fate was about to take an unexpected turn. The halls of Kang Group were more crowded than usual that morning. The announcement of a new strategic project had put all departments on high alert. And to Yoon-ha, Rai's surprise, her name was on the list of employees temporarily assigned to directly support the CEO's team. "This must be a mistake." "Ha," Ri murmured, staring at the email on her screen. Working on the same floor as President Kang Ji-ho after yesterday's incident? She swallowed hard, trying to convince herself that it was just another job like any other. But her racing heart kept insisting otherwise. As she entered the meeting room, Ji-ho was already there, sitting at the head of the long glass table, reviewing documents with his usual impassive expression. His eyes barely lifted when the new team members entered. However, when Hari crossed the door, he immediately noticed, not because he was expecting her, but because somehow that incident from the day before was still lingering in his mind. "Mr. Kang," called the project manager, "these are the employees assigned to assist with contract reviews and logistics for the project. Miss Yoon will be in charge of the administrative tasks." Jiho finally lifted his gaze and fixed his eyes on Hari. Her heart skipped a beat. He held her gaze, as though assessing her. Hari felt her legs wobble, but she steadied herself. "I hope you don't make the same mistakes as last time," he said coldly. Hari swallowed her indignation and simply nodded, determined to prove her worth. The hours passed in a blur. Hari immersed herself in the work, focusing on organizing files and reviewing documents. But her calm was interrupted when, at the end of the day, a problem arose. An error in one of the clauses of the main contract. Time was tight, and Jiho wouldn't accept mistakes. "I need someone to stay late to fix this," Jiho announced. His gaze swept over the team before settling on Hari. "You, stay and make sure everything is corrected." A chill ran down her spine. Stay alone with him? Of all people? With no other choice, she nodded. And so, as the other employees left, Hari remained, sitting at the table, feeling the tension fill the silent room. Jiho sighed and sat down across from her. "If you don't want to be here, just say it. I don't need distracted employees." Hari lifted her gaze, determined. "I'm not distracted, and I will prove that to you." He raised an eyebrow. For the first time, a hint of genuine interest flickered in his eyes. That night would be a test for both of them. The night at the office stretched longer than expected. While Hari meticulously reviewed every clause of the contract, Jiho remained seated across from her, observing her out of the corner of his eye. The silence between them was thick, only broken by the sound of keys being pressed and papers being turned. After a few hours, Hari finally took a deep breath and pushed the documents across the table. "Everything's corrected, Mr. Kang." He took the papers and began flipping through them, his expression unchanged. When he finished, he lifted his gaze to her, studying her for a long moment. "Acceptable," he said flatly. Hari bit her tongue to keep from responding. After all that effort, a simple acceptable? She was exhausted, but she didn't want to show weakness. She stood up to grab her bag, but Jiho interrupted her. "Don't go alone," he said, not looking up from the papers. "It's late." Hari blinked, surprised. The man who had treated her with cold indifference was now showing concern. "I usually go home alone every day, sir." He finally met her eyes, his expression neutral. But his eyes conveyed something more. "Not tonight." Before she could protest, Jiho was already grabbing her coat and calling the driver. The drive back was silent. Sitting next to him in the back seat of the car, Hari tried to ignore the fact that her boss, the powerful Kang Jiho, was there beside her, accompanying her home. She never imagined that a simple mistake in the contract would lead her to this situation. When they arrived in front of her small apartment, Hari hesitated. "Thank you for the ride, Mr. Kang," she said politely, gripping the strap of her bag tightly. Jiho watched her for a moment. "Be more careful next time," he said, before looking away, as though closing the conversation. Hari nodded quickly and exited the car, her heart racing for no apparent reason. But before she could take another step, her phone vibrated. It was a message from her coworker. "Rumors are spreading. They're saying you and President Kang stayed late at the office. Be careful." "Ha!" Rai's stomach churned. Rumors? About her and Jiho? The next day, as she entered the office, the glances were different. Whispers followed her every step. What had once been just a regular routine was now a scene of suspicion and judgment. And to make things worse, Jiho's personal secretary called her for a private meeting. Sitting before her, Hari swallowed hard as the woman crossed her arms and looked at her coldly. "President Kang has an impeccable reputation. You know what happens to employees who try to get too close to him inappropriately, don't you?" Hari felt the tension rise. Was she about to be dismissed? As she tried to process what was happening, the door suddenly opened. Jiho walked in, his stern gaze sweeping the room. What's going on here? The tension in the room escalated, and that was only the beginning of the real trouble. The silence in the room felt deafening. Jiho crossed his arms, his sharp gaze piercing through the secretary, who swallowed hard before quickly standing up. "President Kang, I was just ensuring Miss Yoon understood the boundaries," she said, trying to maintain her composure. Jiho didn't break eye contact. "I don't remember authorizing anyone to question my employees without my consent." The woman turned pale. I didn't mean to. Are you done? Jiho interrupted coldly, raising an eyebrow slightly. The secretary lowered her head and left without another word. Hari watched everything in silence, still trying to understand what was happening. Once they were alone, Jiho turned to Hari. His evaluative gaze made her feel small for a moment. Are you okay? The question caught her off guard. It was the first time he had shown something resembling concern. I don't know. Her voice came out shakier than she would have liked. He sighed and pulled out a chair to sit in front of her. The rumors are inevitable, but I won't allow this to affect your position here. Hari stared at him, surprised. You really don't care about what they're saying? Jiho ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. If I cared about everything people said about me, I would never have gotten to where I am. He paused before continuing. But you're not used to this kind of pressure. Hari lowered her gaze to her hands, which were clasped tightly together. It was true. The sudden attention, the suspicious glances, the gossip. It was all affecting her more than she wanted to admit. If you want, I can transfer you to another department. Her eyes widened. Are you trying to get rid of me, Mr. Kang? He hesitated for a moment before answering, his expression unreadable. Number. Hari felt her heart race. Jiho rarely expressed his intentions so directly, and it made her feel something she shouldn't. Then, I prefer to stay, she said, gathering her courage. I want to prove that I'm here for my work and nothing more. Jiho watched her for a moment before nodding. Then let it be. But Hari still didn't know that this was just the beginning. The resistance from the Kang family would soon become an even bigger obstacle than the office rumors. And contrary to what she believed, Jiho wasn't as indifferent as he seemed. The dinner at the Kang residence was a luxurious and intimidating affair. Hari never imagined she would set foot in a place like this. But there she was, sitting in a discreet corner of the long, dark oak table, surrounded by the business elite of Korea. Everything had happened too fast. After the incident at the office, Jiho had suddenly asked her to accompany him to a family event without offering many explanations. Now she understood. He wanted her to meet his family, or perhaps he wanted to test her. The matriarch, Kang Soo-min, sat at the head of the table, eyeing Hari with a critical gaze. Her fingers lightly tapped against the crystal glass, and the silence in the room grew heavier with every passing second. So, Miss Yoon, Mrs. Kang's voice cut through the air like a sharp blade. How long have you been working at the company? Hari tried to keep her posture steady. 3 years, ma'am. The woman smiled calculatingly. 3 years. And yet, you've managed to get so close to my son. Jiho, who sat beside Hari, took a deep breath but remained silent. The weight of tradition and family expectations rested on him. With all due respect, Mrs. Kang, my relationship with President Jiho is strictly professional. Hari replied, choosing her words carefully. Soo-min leaned slightly forward. Is it? Her eyes narrowed. Then why are the rumors saying otherwise? Hari felt a chill run down her spine. It was a test, and she knew that any wrong answer could damage not only her reputation but her career. Before she could respond, Jiho finally intervened. Mother, I choose who I want by my side. The rumors are none of your business. The silence was absolute. Soo-min raised an eyebrow, surprised by her son's firmness. Jiho, the deep voice of Kang Do-hyun, the patriarch, filled the room. Do you understand what you're saying? Jiho turned to face his father, his expression unshaken. I understand perfectly. Hari felt her heart race. Was he taking a stand for her? The tension was palpable. Soo-min placed her fork down and smiled, but her eyes were cold. Let's see how far this determination will take you, my son. The dinner continued, but Hari knew this was only the beginning. The Kang family would not back down so easily, and Jiho would have to fight harder than ever if he wanted to be with her. The days following the dinner at the Kang residence were a whirlwind of challenges. Jiho's family did not relent. They tried every way possible to distance him from Hari, pressuring him with endless meetings, hinting at marriage arrangements with powerful families, and even threatening his position within the company. But Jiho remained firm. Hari, on the other hand, felt increasingly insecure. She saw the weight of the situation in Jiho's eyes, saw the exhaustion accumulating on his shoulders. And though she didn't want to admit it, part of her wondered if it was right to stay by his side. Was it worth making him face all of this for someone like her? One cold evening, Jiho found her in the small cafe, where they occasionally met after work. He looked exhausted, but his gaze was resolute. "Let's get out of here," he said, holding her hands firmly. "Let's go away for a while, just the two of us." Ha, Rai's eyes widened. "What? Jiho, you can't just disappear. Your family, the company. I've already made my decision." His voice was firm, and his gaze sincere. "It doesn't matter what my family says. It doesn't matter what others think. I love you, Hari, and I won't lose you." His words melted away any remaining doubts in her heart. For the first time, she felt she wasn't fighting alone, that it wasn't just a passing whim. It was love. A love strong enough to challenge everything. The following months were difficult, but Jiho proved with every gesture that he was willing to face any obstacle for her. He stepped away from the family business and started his own company, no longer relying on the Kang influence. Hari stood by him, building their own dreams. And then, on a sunny morning, surrounded by friends and those who truly supported them, they exchanged vows in a simple yet love-filled wedding. Hari never imagined she would end up with the most powerful man she had ever known. But there she was, dressed in white, looking into the eyes of the man who had defied everything to be with her. And when Jiho whispered, "I love you," before kissing her, she knew for sure. They had won, and together, they were ready to start a new chapter.